Alright, I've been dreading making this one because I've been terrible at this trick for such a long time. But I think I'm finally qualified to make a video on hard flips. So my journey with hard flips is kind of crazy because when I was a kid, there's a point where I could do basically all of the hard flips that you would do. I could do a hard flip, I could do a switch hard flip, I could do a nollie hard flip, I could do a fakie hard flip. And then at some point I started to skate bigger boards. Like when I went up past an 8 to an 8.25, they got harder, and so I did them less and less until the point where I mean, anybody who's skated with me in the past like 15 years would know I can't do hard flips. So if you want to get a letter on me in a game of skate, do any kind of hard flip. Sometimes I'd be able to land a switch or a nollie one, but it recently just appealed to me to learn how to do them again, and so I bugged the hell out of a bunch of my friends. One of them being Xander Gabriel. Shout out to Xander because he's the reason I actually landed one. I was skating the park and he showed up, and he's just got effortless hard flips, and so kind of followed him around, and yeah, I was able to land one that day. The next time I went out street skating, I was able to land another one. And then fast forward to yesterday where kid wanted help with one. I hadn't done one in a while because I've had some injuries and been busy, but I was still able to do one and able to help a kid land on one of his first. So I think I'm finally qualified to make a video about hard flips. Now the main thing about hard flips is you want to have your front shove-its and your kick flips down. And one thing that the young man was struggling with yesterday was his front shove-it. So he had a tendency to stiffen up his legs when he did the front shove-it and not to push out enough. So if you've watched my frontside shove-it tutorial video, I talked about how you want to squat all the way down, and then with your back foot you want to push down, and then you want to scoop your foot outward, so out in front of you, so that if someone were standing in front of you, they would see the bottom of your shoe after you scooped outward. And a lot of people struggle with that because they stiffen their legs up when they do the front shove it, and so that makes it hard for them to dig down into the ground. And so that motion is really important for the front shove it. And the other thing is your kick flip. You have to have a pretty solid kick flip if you're gonna do a proper hard flip. Now you might be able to get away with what we call the Muska flip, which is not really a hard flip, it's just kind of a funky turning front shove it. If you wanna do a solid hard flip, have to have a good kick flip. So make sure you got good front shove its, make sure you got good kick flips. I have videos on both of those. And now the foot position of the hard flip is what makes it a little awkward for me because I have a pretty large foot, and I have to stand with my feet pretty close together to make the hard flip work. But with some practice, I was able to get used to it and able to make it work pretty well. And one thing that I found that's important is the timing. So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna set our back foot up the way we'd have it for a front shove it, and we're gonna set our front foot up the way we'd have it for a kick flip. But the difference is when you do your normal kick flip, your foot's gonna be farther up towards the nose. But when we do our hard flip, we want our foot like more than halfway back towards the other foot, because we basically got to do this. If this is our back and this is our front foot, we're going to press down and out for the front shove it motion, and as the board starts rotating, we're going to kick flip. But we're going to kick flip, and instead of flicking our foot straight forward like we normally would, we're going to kind of flick it and then pull it back. If you don't pull your foot back, it's going to catch the board and stop it from flipping. And this is a problem that I ran into and that a lot of people run into. And now the other thing that helps me, so once you've got it rotating and once you've got it flipping, you might find that your board is doing half of the front side shove it and half of the kick flip. And this just means your timing and your pop are probably a little bit off. So you've got to work with those two things. But once the board's flipping all the way, you might notice that it's behind you. And what worked for me the first few times is I just had to be ready to jump backward as the board flipped. And once I got used to the scooping motion being proper, the kickflip motion being proper, flinging my foot backward. I just jumped backwards with it like I did when I first learned how to frontside shove it. And then it's just a matter of sucking my legs up and waiting to catch the board. Sucking my legs up and waiting to catch the board. And once I was able to get all those things down and time them right, like the hard flip's not really that big of a deal. Now, full disclosure, I'm not going to be hard flipping a set of stairs anytime soon because I don't think the way that I do them lends itself to that. But I was able to film one in a line and I'm perfectly comfortable with that. So let's recap. You gotta have frontside shove-its down. Gotta have kickflips down. We're gonna roll up with our back foot in that frontside shove-it position, right? So basically we're gonna make sure our toes are in contact with the tail. We're gonna make sure our heel is up off the tail. We're gonna have our front foot in a kickflip position, but it's going to be pretty close to the back foot. And we're also gonna angle our front foot a little bit more because that's gonna help us with that flicking out and back motion that we need to accomplish. We're gonna crouch, and once we reached the final level of our crouch, we're gonna scoop our back foot down and then out in front of us, right? So someone who's standing in front of you should be able to see the bottom of your foot. Then as the board starts to rotate, that's when the kickflip starts. And as we kickflip, we also pull our leg back. And in the beginning, we're gonna have to jump back a little bit as well so that we can meet the board when it flips. And then we have to suck our legs up. And you're usually gonna catch the board with your front foot. That's how it always works with me. It's the front foot first. And then you're just gonna squat and land. So I hope this video helps you guys land hard flips. It is, for lack of a better word, no pun intended, whatever, a hard trick, but it's not impossible. I'm old and I was able to relearn it. So be patient. If it doesn't work at first, you gotta really be able to assess what you're doing, whether or not you're implementing the different aspects of the trick properly, whether or not you're lifting your legs up to catch the board, and you might have to adjust the speed that you scoop and flick at as well. As you get up to these harder tricks, it requires more patience, and you're gonna have to be able to look at your skating more critically, because a lot of times people just get frustrated and give up and think they can't do it, but really they didn't try hard enough and they didn't look at how they were doing the trick with enough of a critical lens. So I hope that helps. Get out there and land a hard flip. Peace.